In this video, we're going to be going over how to do half-blind dovetails with a cheap jig from Harbor Freight. So this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to show you how to align it and how to make the entire cut process go smoothly. So definitely stay tuned for that. But before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification icon for all of our newest videos. Let's get to cutting. Okay, so before you do any sort of a glue up or anything, I forgot, we need to still do dovetails. Come on now. All right, so anyway, when you're doing dovetails, you gotta be super organized. It's really, really, really important you're super organized. So in this case here, number one is that we need the overall height to be about 24 inches. So we're actually only doing these 5 boards, which is 20 inches actually, since apparently I can't do math until tonight, which is fine because that's exactly what we needed. But that being said, you'll see here we have all of this is left facing. So that's why it says LF or left face. And then this is the front, so hence the facing part. And then on here will be the back. So we number them 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this way we know where they are in the order when we go ahead and assemble all of this together. And that's really about it. So we'll go ahead and get this done. And then, yeah, we'll go ahead and move on to taking this over to the jig. We're going to get the dovetails routed in. And you should be seeing that right about now, actually. All right, so we got our jig all set up. This is the dovetail jig down here. It's a little off screen, but you'll have to go with me on it. There are a couple of things you want to do when you're doing a project like this. So if you're doing 4-inch boards like we are, which I would recommend going with an even number if you're doing dovetailing. It just makes life so much easier because then you don't wind up mid-finger. You always want to be about a 1/4 inch in. So what we use one of these little setup blocks to actually make that determination. And basically what we do is we slide it under the finger, we level the board, and then make sure that this is smooth against the finger. It gives you an exact 1/4 inch, not a big deal. So you're going to take your 1/4 inch setup block and you're just going to simply slide it right in here, and then what you want to feel is you want to feel it being nice and smooth. So as long as it's nice and smooth, you're level. That's perfect. And keep in mind, this is not a cheap Harbor Freight jig. Works just fine. But yeah. And as far as the 1/2 inch goes, then you just want to check here. Again, pretty much same thing with this setup block. This is the 1/2 inch setup block here. And again, we're just going to go ahead and feel along the side here, see if there's any smoothness problems. If they're nice and smooth, then you should be relatively level. And then you don't have much to worry about. And then just for one final check, we'll come over here real quick. Check this out. Oh, look, it's good because we already spent time setting this up. But each time that you use the jig, I do highly recommend that you run setup blocks each time just to make sure that nothing shifts. Like for instance, this up here can shift a little left and right. We didn't realize that at first, and that was kind of a problem. So that now that we know that, we can easily correct for it. Just as we're clamping it down, one side needs to have this little guy in there, and you're pretty much good to go. So not bad. All right, so then at this point here, we're going to go ahead and jump in on getting this squared away. On ours, we're doing about a 14 millimeter drop. I like using millimeters on stuff like this because it's way more accurate than inches. So it's a 14 millimeter drop on the dovetail from the base. So that's what we're using in order to be able to cut that. And it seems to give a really nice snug, but not overly tight connection in the dovetail. So hopefully that works for you. We're using a 1/2 inch dovetail bit like you would probably typically normally use during this type of operation. So with a 14-degree angle on it. So if you're going out to go buy some of the stuff that we have in here, I'm going to put some stuff down in the description, of course, but that's actually what we're going to be using cutting this project here. And the wood is actually, and I wrote it down here somewhere, the wood is actually 13/16. So this is actually a little bit thicker than 3/4. And we wanted it that way because it is going to be used by a child initially who will eventually become an adult. But they're probably going to be a little rough on it, and cedar's a bit soft, so we didn't want to have any chance of it getting broken. Giving it more thickness, of course, will allow it to do that. If you're doing this project, you probably want to go closer with probably about 3/4. I don't know if I'd necessarily do 1/2. Maybe with a really good dense hardwood, you might be able to do that. But ultimately, 3/4 is probably where you want to go for most of these. For somebody who's a little bit more mature, this person's going to be like coming up on 2. So that's the thing. So anyway, let's go ahead and get this started and route some dovetails. The first thing we want to do is cut straight across the face or the end grain of the boards. This will allow us to prevent blowout later on. This next part basically is cutting the actual dovetails themselves. Now we want to go through this pretty slow. This whole part took about 5 minutes, and that's partly because of the reason we don't want a lot of chatter from the bit, and we also don't want to heat up the wood where it winds up burning. In this last part, we just are going to go back through again and make sure that we got all of the cutting completed and we didn't leave any little parts that weren't cut. And in this last part, all we're doing here is basically just cleaning out any of the debris that might be sitting around so we can go and test the joint right after we're done. Okay, so now we have our first set of dovetails set up on here. So now we're going to go ahead and flip it around, and then this will let us go ahead and do the other side. So I'm just going to real quick here mark where these are, because even though it's not necessary to have placement markers, it is helpful sometimes during assembly. For the most part, these should just fit together in an ideal world and everything's fine, but you'll find that's not always the case. So sometimes you want to hedge your bets, as they say. All right, so now we're just going to go ahead and pop this open, and then we'll just come over here real quick, pull that out, flip it around. We're just going to place it right back in there. We're not going to do any adjustments to it yet. These are fairly large boards that apparently I'm trying to break. All right, there we go. All right, no damage, just an oopsie. If you don't have oopsies in your shop, please let me know. All right, so, all right, what we're gonna do again is we're gonna go ahead and double check here, and then double check here, make sure that we are accurate. In this case here, looks like it came across a little, so we'll go ahead and just make sure these are aligned. I think we're good to rock and roll. Cool. So it looks like we should be ready to go. Just double check this one more time. Good gap, or no gap I should say, no gap on this side. Double check this. Smooth as a baby's rear end, and smooth as a baby's rear end. All right, cool, we're good. All right, let's go ahead and get to routing this side here. We just need to drop these down real quick. This is always the fun part. So I want to drop them down without dropping them. All right. So when you're putting these in here, generally like to just go a little snug up here at the top. Let's flip this over here. Make sure you don't go left over right. Or the tail. Actually, I guess it is the pin. If you have smoothness on the pin, then, and you're looking at it from this angle, it should be smooth just like this is. So there you go. All right. So just check and make sure that we're lined up here. It's feeling pretty good. Just gonna double check that. I'm gonna check one more time. Make sure everything's lined up. Smooth as the baby's behind. And double check it. Yep, looking good. All right, cool. We are ready to route. So we'll go ahead and get to that. Okay, so we got these all set up and looking good. Got all this routed out, so now we're just going to go ahead and do a quick test fit, see how it looks, and as long as everything looks good, which don't suppose it wouldn't. If you have everything aligned, normally you won't have any problems. But yeah, we're going to get that going here and see how that comes out. All right, so we are ready to go ahead and put this together. Now, with just a little box, this is actually pretty easy. Sorry, my head's cut off. It's just how it needs to go. With a big box, you want to kind of just actually kind of finesse it in. The joints aren't very tight. They're just tight enough. There we go. Cool. So not much effort put in there. And then let's go ahead and put, there we go. This side will go right here. All right, looking good so far. Last part. You feel that it matters which direction this goes? Probably not. Doesn't really matter, right? Right. All right, so I'm doing this one. And if you folks are wondering, I'm only using the mallet's weight to hit that. So, looks pretty good. Software is always fun to play with, so I'd say we came out looking pretty decent. Give you a little bit of a view here from the bottom. This little tappy tap. Might be a little proud there, I'm not sure. We'll find out here. We'll do some more refining on that, but that's your basic look on there. As you can see, that came out really, really well, and it's already strong. I mean, this is ready to be a box right now. Obviously, we need to do this about, what, 5 times? 5 times? 2, 3, 4. So a bunch more times. But then after that, then we're going to be good to go, and you guys will get to see the final product coming up here pretty quick. So we're going to go ahead and continue working on these, and you'll be seeing the next part here in just a few moments. Oh my goodness. So this came out pretty good. We're not even glued up yet, but this is where we're at. So as you can see, we got really nice, beautiful dovetails. We have good fitment. I didn't get it 100% perfect fitment because, well, you know, things. You know, you gotta line stuff up, and I only want to do so much of that, but you get the basic idea. As you can see, as long as you have all your board dimensions correct, you're pretty much good to go. So, pretty easy project when it comes down to that part, at least. The dovetails, they do take a while, so don't think you're just gonna jump into this 15 minutes later, you're done. It does take a bit, and often you'll find that boards don't perfectly set exactly where you think they're gonna sit. So, if you get that a little bit, just make sure you measure each time. Just do a quick check over with those blocks that I showed earlier in the video. You should be fine. Anyway, so this thing's pretty much ready for glue up. So that's gonna be our next stage. Get this all, get at least a couple of panels done tonight, and then we'll probably work on a couple panels tomorrow because it's getting late. And then we'll put this bad boy together, and yeah. Gonna be a lot of fun. Enjoyed watching the half-blind dovetail jig from Harbor Freight demo that we did here. Hopefully you learned a little bit about this kind of more cost-effective option. I know there's a lot of different expensive options out there that probably are a little bit easier to set up, but ultimately, unless you're gonna be doing a ton of large boxes, there's not really a lot of reason to have one of those. So this does just fine. This isn't something that like Harbor Freight paid us to do. It's just something that we picked up and we're like, hey, you know what? This seems like this would be pretty cool and we can make a cool box out of it. Let's see if we can get it to work, and we did. So we wanted to show you how we did it. Long story made short, links will be down in the description for all the products that we used in the video. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, definitely leave those down in the comment section down below. Otherwise, just wanted to thank you again for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification icon for all of our newest videos. In the meantime, Stay safe in the shop.